Here we go. For those of you who are family that might see this, I tried to talk about this once before. For those of you that aren't family, this might be just an interesting little note on how a family handles things. I don't know if it's grief or if it's anger or what the reasons, but hurtful things are being said after my father's passing. And the only way that I can deal with this is to set the record straight. The internet gives me the option of telling everybody exactly what happened from my perspective, and then you can decide from there. My father's name was Edward Arthur Hinkle. He passed away recently. He was a Marine. He was on Iwo Jima. He lived with my sister for the last 10 years of his life, and she was made his legal executor while she took care of him. I thank her for that. He fell and broke his hip and asked me, and I was asked to come to his bedside. I did. When I got there, he tricked me. I walked in, he's laying there. First thing he did is grab my hand, say, "Still got a grip, boy?" And then the doctor told me that he had been restless and not sleeping, and they needed to get him relaxed. And so I'm talking to Dad. Everybody's left the room. And I'm leaning over the bed holding his hand, and I put a brush, the string from the mask they had on him, around from his ear, and he put his head on my hand and went to sleep. So I'm stuck over the bed like this. Everybody's outside being nice, leaving me private time with my father, and I'm praying somebody will come in before my back breaks, because every time I try and move, he wakes up. Anyway, he and I had time to talk about a lot of things. But towards the end, it was getting hard for him to breathe. He had pneumonia, and he had tuberculosis as a child, had really bad scarred lungs. So we put a mask on him to my other sister and my brother, and our families could be there. Afterwards, we were standing in his bedroom, and they had the mask on, the one that forces air into the lungs. And I was holding his hand, and it was nearing time. We all knew it. I heard my father saying something to me, kind of trying to breathe through the mask. And I said, "I love you too, Dad. Don't bark." And he goes, "There you go." And I said, "Yes, Dad." Now I looked up. At the foot of the bed, maybe 2 or 3 feet away, was my son Arthur, crying like a man who's just accepted something that he doesn't want to. My wife, who loved my father as much as any daughter could, is standing holding herself, silent witness to this. My sister Linda is standing beside the other side of the bed, and I saw her back straighten and her shoulders come back and her chin go up, and she went into Chief Nelson and said, "I'm making a command decision. This is enough." And then she stopped and she turned and she realized that she was standing there with the family, and she says, "No, you guys have all got your say, but I made my decision." And I said, "Linda, you know I'm behind you all the way." And my son Arthur just nodded his head, and my wife hugged Chris. Chris hugged Linda. And we asked the doctor to take the mask off. And while I had been talking with my dad, I told him I'd stay there as long as he wanted to, until he told me it was time for me to go. And when he said, "Let me go," I said, "Yes, Dad." And so I kissed my father goodnight, and I told him I loved him. And we went home and dealt with our own problems while my father went peacefully to sleep that night. Now, if anybody wants to hold Linda responsible for anything, or me responsible for anything, you can hold us responsible for honoring our father's last requests. You can hold my sister responsible for loving her father and caring for him in his final years. If anybody has any complaints or any discussions that they would like to make about this, this is what happened. I would not advise talking to Arthur about it, because if somebody said something bad about his aunt, he's liable to react non-verbally. Dad wanted us all to be a family, each of us special, separate unit, a team. The fighting's got to stop. We're better than this. He taught us better than this. I don't want to do this because in today's world this is a joke, right? Grandpa was the patriarch. When he died, that put Dad in charge. He was the patriarch. Ernie and Lavelle, his younger brothers and sisters, everybody knew this. Look what you got now, folks. I'm putting my foot down. This crap's got to stop. For Dad's sake, for the family's sake.